Hey there. So I wanted to quickly go over some of the steps that I take when shining, polishing, and protecting my Raku ware. In my experience, with any low fire pottery that has an exposed surface that's incorporated with its exterior decoration, like naked Raku, like these, or Avara, or horsehair pottery, they are subject to fading over time from UV rays, and as well as after the firing process, they need to be scrubbed a bit and polished up. So I was just going to go through some of the steps that I take in sealing and protecting all of those pieces after the fact. So the first thing that I like to use right after I take the naked Raku pieces out of the kiln is I just use a metal rib and gently scrape off the slip to reveal the white surface underneath. And I've made the mistake of using a plastic scraper before, and at that high temperature, of course it will melt, and that's happened. So unless you want black plastic decoration on your naked Raku, which could look great, I'd recommend using a metal rib or something that won't melt. But then right after that, once they are cooled down and I'm ready to start the polishing process, I like to use a workable fixative. I like to use the Krylon one. There's many different types, but basically the fixative sets the design in place, because for this type of process, as well as horsehair, it's a sintered surface, it's called, so it's not a glaze. And the decoration is literally carbon that has been trapped into the surface of the clay. So that being said, since it's essentially smoke that's being trapped into the surface, it is not permanent. If you refired those up to a certain temperature, you could basically get them white again. So it's not permanent. So the workable fixative does help to pretty much prevent smearing. And that's also important because if you decide to use polish afterward, then the polish could smear some of the decoration. So it does kind of help to set everything in place and make them a little bit more ready to be handled. After that, once I'm prepared to do some polishing, I've used Renaissance wax. That's actually been the one that I've found most versatile and durable, actually. So Renaissance wax, the thing I like about it is that it doesn't leave any colored residue. So like I've tried using beeswax before, which does do the job, but it leaves a little bit of a yellow hue. So if you are not into that, then I would recommend not using something that has any percentage of beeswax in it. One of the benefits of the wax too is it really does give the surface a little bit more of a soft and hardened finish, because the wax, when applied, does harden pretty quickly. And so it does give the pots a kind of hardened feel to the exterior, a little bit more finished. That being said, there's still, low fire ware is still not functional, like watertight. If you're interested in making them watertight, there are different types of things you can get from a hardware store to put on the inside. And also with the polish, it's really important to use some sort of microfiber cloth, something that is not going to leave residue. And one of the wonderful things about the Renaissance wax too is it's not as sensitive as some waxes where your fingerprints might leave marks and things like that. Once you apply it and buff it out with a microfiber type cloth or a t-shirt or something like that, it does harden, like I said, pretty quickly, and there's no residual smudge marks. So it is a pretty durable and as well as sensitive and versatile type of wax. So I've really, really loved using that. And lastly, after all of that, I use same also for Krylon, a UV resistant clear gloss coating. And that's really important, I find, because that does protect these pieces from UV rays. For my customers, I always do recommend that they keep these in a low light area just to preserve them through time, and to make sure that they're not left in like a windowsill, because especially with Avara, I've seen some of the designs disappear just being left in the light, and same does go for naked Raku in my experience. So the UV protective coating does go a very long way. And the wonderful thing about it too is you can just reapply it later on if you felt so inclined. Just got to be careful not to apply it too thickly, because then it does drip and saturate. And they also make a matte version of this if you're looking for something a little bit less shiny as a finished product. So that's also available. That will kind of dull down a little bit of the fixative shine as well as the polish. So if you want more of a matte finish, that's definitely the way to go. But if you want it a little bit more shiny like these ones have turned out, then a gloss finish will be what I'd recommend. All of this is possible by having a terra sigillata solution that you apply before they're bisqued in the first place, and they also need to be fired to a lower temperature. I bisqued all of these to cone 07, So just under 1800 degrees. Any higher than that, then some of the polish that they've gotten from the burnishing process using the terra sigillata will disappear. So that's an important aspect too. But that being said, the gloss and the polish would still go a fair long way, I think, if you had a pot that was not as shiny to begin with, but I would still recommend going through those burnishing steps to achieve a more high shine upon the finished product. Also, when you're doing all of these steps, I would highly recommend using a respirator. A dust mask is not going to do the job. You need something that has vapor protection, because all of these chemicals and fixatives and all of that are going to not be good to breathe in. So you definitely don't want that happening with your lungs, and you want to do this outside is best. I even find if I've done some of the polishing with the Renaissance wax indoors with the doors open, it's still not quite enough. It does linger for quite a while, and it has a sort of petroleum type, stink to it. So definitely go outside if you can, and be sure to wear your mask. All right, so I hope all of that was helpful, and thank you so much for watching. I hope this information comes in handy on your next firing and you're finishing up your work. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks so much for spending some time with us.